Great start as always. Welcome to episode 4 of the Just Because podcast with your hosts, Marodelo and
Dan the Man. I like the symbol.
Yeah, there's a drum.
It's a good introduction piece.
All right, so song of the day. I'm gonna let you take it away.
Well, we have a special one.
That is very true.
Because we did send each other songs, which we can circle back to that at another time. I'm not overly concerned about it at the moment. But I want to plug your song that came out on Friday, which any of y'all know what's good for you. Go stream that shit or download it right now because it's awesome.
Thank you, cuz it's called Untouchable, and it's a song about not letting anything or anybody get in the way of your dreams. And I will be sure to pop it in the description. I'll pop it up right now.
Why not?
And now it's gone.
Well, I mean, it is yours, so I guess we can kind of do whatever the hell we want with it.
That's true. Yeah, we could do whatever.
So we're not gonna get the fun email from legal that says, "Yo,
you can't make any money from this video because you're using copyrighted."
Yeah. Kind of like that frantic text I sent you yesterday when I was like,
Yeah, no, we will, we'll take it up with Susan.
I mean, I already have the strongly worded email drafted.
There we go. We will go over that after the podcast.
That'll be the first bonus video.
Yeah, we're not threatening you, we promise.
We're not threatening you, but it will happen at some point.
That's right. Disclaimer.
Yeah. That'll be the first Patreon. The open letter to Susan and our defamation lawsuit.
For $2, you can get your signature on the email.
Are we gonna pimp this letter out like the Declaration of Independence?
I think we should, and we should go down to Independence Hall and draft it on our phones when you're out here next.
Yes. You just start typing it. I'll just be holding on to the Liberty Bell, and then I'll walk away and finish it.
Perfect.
In the true America that we live in.
What are you sipping on today, cuz?
Oh, there'll be much product placement in this one. But for now, I have my grapefruit bubbly. Which, by the way, I drink a lot of water as it is, and every once in a while, you just want that extra, like, flavor that's not water flavor.
That little kick, Yeah,
and I can't recommend any, like, I love bubbly. There hasn't been one flavor I don't like.
Dude, you know what? Honestly, after I saw the Michael Bublé bubbly commercial, I went out and bought, like, a 24-pack of bubbly. I'm not going to lie.
I forgot he did that.
He, like, he crosses out the line. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so good.
No, it's this.
And the guy's like, don't do that.
Don't be that guy, Bublé. Come on.
Okay, so Danny, let me ask you, given that you've kind of seen my music journey grow over the years, 2018, I graduated high school and have been pursuing it professionally, what do you think of Untouchable?
It's my favorite song you've put out to date, by far. It's been stuck in my head since Friday. So I'll find random times that I'll just hear the chorus in my head and I'm like, yeah, that's doing what it's supposed to do. And I really, 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 really enjoyed the guitar parts and the not musically inclined anymore, can barely read music. I want to say it's the solo at like the 130 part.
Yeah.
I did like that a lot. Thought it was great, and more of that.
More of that? Okay, yeah. No, I can bring you some more upbeat stuff. I get it though. Breathe You was a very like, breathe you away, like, wah! I get it. You got to change it.
You were a little emo, but it's okay.
Blues pop John Mayer emo is what I like to call that song.
I'll take it. But no, I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm glad to see you got a lot of streams already.
Yeah.
That's huge.
dude, we're almost at like 2,000 as we speak. Like
Nice.
it's moving, man. But you know what, man? It's all comes down to the right marketing, and it's not just marketing; it's targeted marketing is the key.
Yeah.
And consistency. Like I've heard, what's interesting about that kind of stuff is like I've heard that if you put out songs on a consistent basis of like every 4 to 6 weeks, you get more traction on Spotify. And if you and it's kind of interesting. Spotify reacts better with singles, and then like all the other music platforms react better with EPs or albums, right? So it's kind of also like you're feeding the beast what it wants. If you catch
Right. And like I said, you're a lot more in tune with that than I am. I don't live in that world, but that makes complete sense. And I mean, I would say specifically, I think, and you again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't live in this world. I think that's what Spotify kind of intended. They
yeah,
wanted to corner that niche where it's like keep feeding us stuff, whereas like Pandora, I'd probably even say Apple Music too, where it's like, here's everything you want. Have at it.
exactly. No, like iTunes was definitely geared that way. I can't believe like the iTunes store doesn't exist. Like Yahoo Answers doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, dude, on 420 of this year, Yahoo Answers completely shut down.
I knew that, but the iTunes store still exists.
Really? Because
Only
like,
on iPhones.
oh, okay. So like
Because
iMac and whatever. Yeah.
yeah, no, everything else it went away. Not on. It's not on your iPads. It might be on an iPod Touch. I haven't seen an iPod Touch in
Oh,
10
geez.
plus years.
They're like
um,
obsolete at this point. Like you might as well just have an iPhone.
well, maybe not because and again, I'm not an Apple nerd anymore. You and I've had this conversation.
That's true.
Um,
That is true.
I'm no longer tethered to the suckling at the teat that is Big Apple.
Mhm.
But when I switched back to my iPhone and then now I'm getting rid of it in the next week or so, I saw the iTunes store and I was like, okay, it still does exist, but I would say with the iPod Touch, you can technically even make it an iPhone because
Yeah,
FaceTime you can still do audio calls and you could just like put like Skype or something on there.
yeah, and you can carry around a little like what's it called? Like a little portable hotspot or whatever. But at the
Right.
same time, it's like you might as well get an iPhone. But to be honest with you, like they're good for little kids because like Christina, Adriana, her daughter has like one of those iPod touches, and like for
Yeah.
that age group, like perfect.
Yes.
You know,
And
although I do have to say, I feel that like it's kind of toxic, not toxic, but like toxic to the growth of kids in that generation that are like 6 or 7. They have like iPads and like crap like that.
I think there's a delicate balance to it, and nobody has figured it out yet.
No, no, there's no way. Um, not yet, not yet.
Right. And I would say, for example, and we can edit this out later after but one of Carrie's best friends came up for her birthday, and she doesn't let her son watch screens at all. He's almost, I think, 2,
Mhm.
and sure, fine, whatever. But I go to put on the TV with like YouTube on because my buddy sent me this what show was it? I can't remember. He sent me a show that was a couple years old. No nobody's like there's no stage, there's not, it's just synthesizers and like crazy trippy videos.
Right.
That's all it is with the music playing behind it. I turned it on because I wanted to hear it, and she goes, we don't allow him to have screens. I looked at Carrie like with like daggers coming out of my eyes, like, what hellhole is this?
Yeah. No, I think that it's healthy to look at. I think it's healthy to use screens for sure, especially if it has to do with your job, like me. But like I guess like I had a friend growing up who wasn't allowed to have screens until he was like 9, and he's like he I don't know, he was just a little ahead of the curve compared to the other kids. Not gonna lie, like looking back, you know what I'm saying?
Well, like I said, there's definitely something to be said about social interaction and things like that. So I think that's where the balance comes into play. It's just one of those things that you want to get your kids socialized. Your kids should be socialized, should be talking to other people, not
Yeah, true. Yeah, you need to get your kid to act like a human being and not like a drone. You know, like I feel like a lot of girls in my generation are so boring and uninteresting because they've spent all this time gloating on their own Instagram page instead of like having an actual opinion about politics or world events or just like common things you would talk about, and they're just like a brick wall. You know what I'm saying?
I would say to go along with that, or even having an actual human conversation.
Yeah, like it's. I feel like there's kind of like a disconnect there.
Not
Let's
concerned.
jump onto our topic today. So today on episode 4, kind of a more serious topic, but it has to do with the time of year. May is Mental Awareness Month.
Mental Health Awareness Month, not mental awareness. You and I are just not.
Yes,
We're a
yes.
little jacked up today.
This is the month where we remember that we have a brain. Yes.
Is that what that is?
Mental Awareness Month. Jesus.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let you kick it off. So tell me about things that strongly impact your mental health and how you cope with them and stay level-headed in your career and your lifestyle and who you are as a person, Danny.
Well, beer helps. No.
Hey.
You're right. No, I mean, ugh. That's a loaded question, to be honest.
I know, that's what makes it interesting.
I would just say it takes time to kind of like become level-headed or like kind of detach yourself from stuff that's bothering you that shouldn't.
Right.
And you know this as well as I do. Our mothers have lectured that to us since we were 3. So we've kind of grown up in that environment, and I try to just tell myself that, but I mean, I also work in a career where I'm not allowed to fly off the handle. So that kind of helps.
Same.
Now, granted, I will like after I'll have a conversation or like I'll handle a situation. There's definitely times like I'll sit at my desk and I was like, or I'll just start laughing uncontrollably because I'm like, this is the most insane thing I've ever heard. So, like you have to find some level of hilarity in like comedy about what you do. You can't be just constantly wound so tight you're gonna snap.
No, it's very true. Like I've definitely made that mistake myself. So tell me about like one of the crazier things that's happened in your HR history and how it impacted your mental health, if it even does, or if you let it, I guess.
I mean, for the most part, the only thing that impacts me about my career is job hunting. That is a giant pain in the ass. And as somebody who works in the actual hiring space, I've been saying this for about over 5 years. It's broken how we hire people, and nobody has a good fix for it. So it's just one of those things where you could just keep spinning your wheels and like kind of go down your own rabbit hole of bad thoughts creeping into your head after you've kind of beaten your head off a wall for a few weeks and getting nowhere.
I feel that, dude. Like, it's the same thing. Like job hunting for me is like finding a good booker or finding, you know,
True.
especially in this weird time. And even booking tour and like booking, it's such a weird process. Like putting together a tour is not easy. Like
No, and I can't imagine with what you're doing now, it makes it a lot harder because it's all remote. And I would ask, how do you know you're getting the right person without, when it's hard to have that real like face to face conversation, look in their eyes and say, okay, you get it.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So, you know, I recently found somebody that I don't really think was connected, I guess, which is no, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just, and when you're getting yourself into an industry like this, it's a very slow build, no matter if you're the artist or if you're on the business side. Like building connections takes just as much time for as a business person as it does for an artist, unless they're just really already connected and they already know people before they go in. Um,
Right.
because the thing is like right off the bat, like, you know, again, like a part of my music journey was around November and December of 2017. My mom, you know, she's in creative advertising. She's like Don Draper, but not a scumbag, if you get that. And she was judging at this event, and she met someone who knew these music producers, right? And they ended up being my first ever music producers. So like there was that connection there, right? Like when I was
Right.
a teenager. And then also it's like this person knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And it's like, you know, if you it's you can be connected with anyone you want to. It's really dependent on your approach. Um, but I have to say though, like when you want to get connected with people, you want to be connected with people who you know are like they're like the real deal, and they're not just saying they know these people. They're not just saying that they'll help you out. Like they actually will, because it's like it's kind of like this. I have a friend who got a PhD recently and was saying like, "Damn, I thought this meant job security. I thought this meant like I was going to be able to feed myself." I'm like, it's not what you do. Like connections for me in the music industry is my PhD. It's not getting the connections, it's what you do with the connections. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and networking is networking. And today, especially with the advent of social media, the internet, the way that we operate mostly on the internet and phone calls, it's like you have to network. Not everything is just face to face anymore. But
No,
also,
and you're very right.
yeah, and it's just like people, because people in my generation think that you just get a job when you're done school. It's like, no, you get connected with people and you get a job. Like the difference between me and somebody who went to college to help pursue their, and they want to pursue a music career at the same time, is like I don't have to deal with all that debt. You know what I'm saying? Like I have no debt. Like I don't, like in my family, like there's no debt at all. And it's because like I didn't spend all this money to go to school, because going to school isn't going to give you a career in music, right? But of course there's careers where you need to go to school to get, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But like it just comes down to like, just because you're, whether you go to school or not, you have to like network and get to know people and be nice and show that you're serious, because if you're not, it's like who's going to take you seriously?
Right. And unfortunately, um, where I think the disconnect is with, I would say some of the mindset you're talking about, where it's like, I went to college, I should get a job. No, that's not at all how it works. You have to do those connections, and I would say you already have a leg up on a lot of those people that did go to college for the musicals career, because you've already got 3 years ahead of them.
That's true.
And time is money. It is what it is. That's 100% true. And I mean, the way that the world is changing, um, the networking is the biggest thing. But like there was a time not too long ago where if you had a friend or you had an in somewhere like at a company, you basically had a job.
Yeah.
And I'm kind I I'm kind of split in two. I'm happy those days are gone because you're actually getting potentially better people for whatever it is you're feeling, whatever positions you have.
Right.
And part of me is like, well, I kind of wish we could go back to that where you could just make a phone call and then you got a job.
Yeah. No, and
But
and how that
sadly,
ties
it's
into
the case.
mental health is like the stability of like, damn, do I really have a job? You know?
Yeah.
And
No, like I said, if you're looking or if you're in a contract role and you're hoping like to get made permanent. I mean, like I said, I have a contract job right now. I'm looking for a full-time position. I'm grateful I have a job. I don't particularly like it so much, but I'm grateful I have something.
yeah,
And that's kind of how I just tell myself and more or less keep myself grounded. I'm just like this. I'm like I could be unemployed, so I'm not thrilled with what I'm doing, but I have something. Um, because just kind of that thing where it's like you don't have the job and you're searching, that sucks.
it does. It does. Like for example, for me, like I met another booker
Okay.
recently, and their experience is literally 10-15 fold compared to like the I was working with, right?
Hmm.
Or the other person, I should say. Um, but the thing is like you can't. It's kind of like having a booker go out and get gigs for you is kind of like as a teenager going to restaurants and like filling out an application and hoping somebody calls you. It's the same thing. Um, and it's kind of just like you have to let things sit for a while, especially with times like right now. It's just like job applications and booking emails are kind of in the same boat. It's like they're thinking that they can even afford to hire acts like that with their
Yeah.
businesses. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or hire more staff. It's the same
Yeah.
thing, and it's it's not belittling, but it's intimidating. It's intimidating because you're thinking about the state of the world, and like before the pandemic, we didn't have to worry about that as
No.
musicians. Not anybody. No one had to worry about anything. Um, but kind of spiraling into that topic of like depression during the pandemic, like obviously like we don't even have to touch on the fact that like people are so much more depressed or more likely to be depressed during this time.
Yeah, no, and yeah. I mean, we don't even have to really go there because that's just the world we're in now.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I'm happy we're starting to come out of it. At least I hope so. Um, but I mean, definitely, the winter was probably the worst time.
oh
Like from what, like late October to early March, when it's just depressing, cold, and gross out.
yeah,
That's just not fun for anybody. And
no.
then you add on, oh, you can't leave your house.
Exactly. Like I remember, obviously like the winter of 2020. I mean, technically we did have the winter of 2020, most of it at least.
Yeah.
uh, and it was kind of funny, like I wasn't even thinking about coronavirus until literally like March. Like I literally didn't even know what it was until March. Like it just flew over my head. I was too busy in my own world. Most people were. um but like in the winters, like before, like it was just like I was gigging with my cousin Johnny. He's my dad's age, and he's
Yeah.
singing songs from the 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, all classics and stuff. And he would like he has like a small following, enough he could bring like 20-30 people to a venue in the area. Just it's his close friends and everything, and they all
Yeah.
come out and they dance, and it's like terrific. And like it was interesting. I kind of got to do that recently. um
Mhm.
where what was it? It was like it was last weekend, right before the knee happened, like literally the day before. Um, and I got to get up and play for the first time, or just sing. I got up to sing "Breathe You" for the first time in literally like months, and it was the most
Nice.
exhilarating feeling just to get up and do that. Like I felt like a human being again. Uh,
Right.
and like, here's the thing: everyone was masked as far as I remember. I just took mine off to sing because like you can't sing through
Yeah.
the mask. It's like, what is he saying?
Yeah. It's not gonna work. So you're gonna sound like a terrible version of Bane. So
It's not like you're singing with your mouth closed.
yeah. But no, I know what you mean. It's I wouldn't say that's like it's a little thing, but it is those little things that you miss.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm happy we're getting out of it, but like I said, it's just been like, and I think just as like a society and a people, it sucks. It took us a global pandemic to be able to talk openly about this.
Yeah.
Like this is something that should not ever be stigmatized, or we should be closed minded about. And like I said, if one great thing happened about it is now people are actually having those conversations and seeking the help that they need. But on the whole, really dumb of humanity for it to kind of take the world being shut down for us to recognize this problem.
Absolutely. Because even like, I can admit, like, I shit for balls. There goes my camera.
Lovely. And this is the kind of high production value you get on the Just Because podcast.
Video, FaceTime.
Camera go poop. All right, there we go.
But now we're back, and
Yeah.
there we go. I'm gonna come in a little closer. Gonna get intimate.
Yeah, like I said, this is the high production value you're gonna get on this one of a kind podcast run by Idiot 1 and 2.
That is very true. Yeah, I'm gonna fix the lighting real quick too because it's a little too fucking bright.
No worries.
Let me just turn it down. Cause I got this big ass camera back here. Does this do anything? Oh, it does do something. Oh, okay.
Did you break it?
No, I didn't break it. I didn't break anything. I promise, Danny. I just have to turn it down a little more. There's like a dial. It's this giant, the big light that was in the back, like the big white thing that was in the background of the last podcast.
Yes.
That's exactly what this is. Let's see. That is much better.
I was gonna say, you don't have to apologize to me if you broke the camera. That's your dad that's gonna kill you. So.
Oh no! It just died. It didn't. It didn't break. Disclaimer, Dad. I'm sorry.
Disclaimer, please. No.
But okay. So let's talk more about mental health. So Danny, let me ask you something. Were you bullied as a kid?
That's a really good question. Not that I'm aware of, to be perfectly honest. Kind of like I talked about in the last episode, I've always just kind of done my own thing, and I've always had a pretty good kind of like intuition about how people were, like from like just a 5-minute conversation. So I've always kind of done my best to just not associate with those types of people.
Right.
Or just not really put myself in those situations. Now, I mean, when I was a kid, my parents would put me in like karate for self-defense, but like I think that's normal. I don't think they were ever kind of
concerned.
No, and I'm grateful that I've never kind of been in that type of situation because I can't imagine what it is like. But yeah, long and short, no.
Well, I can tell you for certain I was. Not anymore though. I don't let that shit happen. But it's
good.
Like it took. You know what, dude? It took me the first 20 years of my life to realize that I can't control anything anybody else does besides me. I can only control me. I can't. And here's the thing. It took me I never dated anybody in high school. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. And I didn't have a serious girlfriend until after I graduated in like 2019 into 2020. And then I think it was a year. Yeah, that's right. A year ago, I think tomorrow we broke up. Right. But it took me getting bullied by friends. Well, half weren't my friends. The other half were my friends and they turned into bullies over time. And I realized like why I was such an easy target and why I shouldn't let that happen. And then it took me being in an emotionally abusive relationship to realize, you know what, like I can't let anybody push me around anymore. Like, because it's kind of the only realization that made me realize was like my ex became like a bully to me in a way. So that was like the turning point. I'm like, no more of this. And I guess the biggest lesson I learned is like, if anybody, viewers, you too, Danny, if anyone ever tries to like gaslight you or bully you into shit, like the best thing you can do is just like ignore it. Because I realized like they only get off when you respond to it.
Right. Ignore, walk away, wash your hands of it. And exactly like you said, you can't control the universe. You can't control people. Just do your best to be a good human. And that's all we can do.
It's true. And like, what's kind of funny is like every time I ran into like a childhood bully, like post middle school, like sometimes I'd see them around in high school or even after high school, and they can barely look me in the eye. Whether they're in the distance and they're not really like talking to me or anything, or whether like I'm having a face-to-face conversation, they can barely look me in the eye. And it just shows that they're still shameful. And
right.
And it's kind of, what, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of nice because the tables have turned and they're intimidated by you for what they did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I'm okay with that. It's like whatever, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I don't understand the concept of the bullying and things like that because I know there's other stuff at work.
Oh yeah.
It causes people to do that. So like I said, I will never understand that. But I mean, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, if you need help, go get it.
Absolutely. Like, there were times, I mean, you get this too. Like when you're an only child, you feel like you go through a lot of your emotions alone and you really can't be buddy with your sibling and be like, hey, I'm having like emotional problems. You know what I mean? Right. And sometimes there's situations you can't tell your parents, because it's just the circumstance. And like, and like I said, you can definitely side with this. Is like when you go through things on your own, you build this wall, not a wall to keep things out or to keep things from happening, but you build this kind of shield and it makes you kind of stronger because you're not being on someone that's close to your age.
Right.
Because there are even some things you can't tell your friends, and we all know that.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, how do we go through this? And another thing I learned about that is just like, I how do I even word it? Like, there's this kind of as an only child, there's this mental complex that you build where you don't realize you're building it. And you build that complex of like people realize you're an only child. Like if there were so many people who asked me in high school, they're like, are you an only child? I'm like, yeah, why? And they're like, oh, that explains a lot. I'm like, excuse me?
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean? Like, you're just gonna leave me hanging with that like gaslighting pseudo backhanded compliment? Like, what are you gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I don't know how to regurgitate it. I'm not smart enough, nor do I have a diverse enough vocabulary to try to figure it out. So I'm just not going to. But I know what you're talking about. So I definitely, and I noticed it a few times, but it was nothing. But like I said, it might just be like just kind of like how I was. Like people would say it, I would just be like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna move past it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Honestly, you had a better approach at it because like I was the kind of person who would seek somebody's approval, and that was my mistake because like I would retaliate to try to change their mind, and obviously that's what they get off on.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's not necessarily a bad thing though, because you have a different perspective on it than I do, and kind of what you're talking about, I would say is also still a very good approach, because that teaches you other lessons that I probably don't have.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I would definitely say that, like, because there were even times where like, obviously we're all not perfect, and like where I didn't realize I was bullying somebody. I just said something and I kind of just let it roll off because I didn't know that that impacted that person that way. And I think we're all guilty of that. Like we all obviously sometimes we're a little too honest or a little too frank, or we just say something that we don't think is going to offend people and then it does. And then at a
Yeah.
later date they might retaliate for it. And I was like, I had no idea that was the way that was taken.
Hmm.
And I can look back and say that, like, kids that there were a couple of kids, like one or two specifically, that I thought were bullying me, but they weren't. And they just said things that they meant but didn't mean to offend. You know what I mean? And it was kind and looking like I confronted them later in life, and they were like, whoa, hold on, like I'm sorry, like that was not what I meant. um and with reason to believe they really didn't mean it. um but no, like that also taught me, like, damn, like I've definitely done the same. Like,
I
but
think you're right. I think we all have, and sometimes, and like I said, sometimes it is misconstrued, sometimes it is taken out of context. But if you what people, I think a lot of people need to get better at is addressing it in the moment. It's like, hey, this bothers me. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, how can we rectify this, or how can we fix this and move on from it and learn from this, and not let it like fester for days, weeks, months, years, whatever. Um, I think that would help. But again, not everybody's going to be built that way, and not everybody wants to do that.
yeah, no, because some people aren't good. Like, I've realized something too. Like, I'm very good at being honest and confronting my feelings and emotions, and being confrontational, which is something that most people can't, like, even begin to handle.
Hmm.
Like, even my parent, like, my parent, my mom is 56 and my dad's gonna turn 70 in June. And they're like, there are people my age that, like, they still can't deal with confrontation, and they've lived most of their lives unable to do it. Um, and and that's kind of like half the battle, because you think about it, those bullies, like when you're a kid, kids usually bully because there's something going on at home,
Yep.
right? And then kids in middle school for the same reason, and then kids in high school usually bully because either it's something going on at home or they're getting bullied too in some fashion. um and when it's an adult, it's clearly there's insecurity and jealousy involved. um
Right.
and it's kind of just like you have to put yourself in the shoes of those people. And so I remember one time there was this kid who was picking on me, and I'm like, I literally said to him, like, is everything okay at home? And he looked, like, he turned to me, he's like, shut up. He walked away and never, like, picked on me ever again. Like,
Yeah. And like I said, sometimes you have to have those blunt and brutal like conversations. And like I said, sometimes it has the effect, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, and it, like I said, none of us are perfect, so we're all gonna like make these mistakes. But I mean, it is one of those things where if you can be a little bit more like open, honest, candid, blunt, however you want to really qualify it, you're gonna, I would say you're probably gonna learn more, and you might kind of like, you might develop either a harder shell, or you might kind of drop your shell a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Because I can attest to that, because I've dropped my shell. Like, once I kind of realized, like, especially within the last year, like, I can't let anybody push me around like I used to. Um, I've started to slowly let my guard down. Like, I'm lowering my shield.
Right.
Um, and I've been able to open up more in ways that, like, I already open up enough as it is, but I've learned how to open up in ways that lets me be more vulnerable with people, um, than I already was. You know what I mean? And but not in a way to let them take advantage of me, if that makes sense.
No,
Because
I get exactly what you're saying. I think once you get burned once or twice, you kind of know when that may happen. So you kind of, I would say, you develop that skill set to say, okay, I know where to set these parameters, and I know like kind of how open about whatever I'm going to be with like this person versus that person, because I trust this person or this person's done something different. So I think it's one of those things where, as with time and as you get older, you will learn that. But I think it just, at the end of the day, we're all kind of constantly learning that, because we encounter so many different people on a daily basis that one thing you say to one person, it might be perfectly fine. One thing you say to somebody else, like, goes off the wall or goes off the rails for whatever reason.
Exactly. But you also have to realize that like half the time, like theoretically, there's two different ways people could take that. Half the time they take it as like a straight up insult, and it can be perceived that way by anybody. But then there's also people who just can't get over themselves and they're petty about it.
Yep.
Like I had somebody once, I gave them the advice of like, if you don't record yourself and listen back to yourself at, doing what you do, like whether you're an actor, a singer, or whatever, is if you don't record yourself being the performer, you're not going to make it, because you're not going to be able to critique yourself. And that person took that as they'll never make it because they don't do it right. And they retaliated at me later, and they're just like, well, who the fuck are you? Like, you've been doing this for 3 years and you're fucking nobody. And I'm like, excuse me. I didn't really understand why you said that. Have you left the bedroom with your talent? I don't think so. You know what I mean? It's just like people, like it comes down to like people don't realize it's a slow build, but then also like some people, it was one of those cases of like they can't get over themselves and they can't listen to blunt advice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of the other things is like ego feeds into that too. So
Absolutely.
I'll say people like that. I would say like people that some might have like larger egos fall directly into what you're saying, because, and to exactly go with that topic was, I remember the first, before we even like did the actual like first episode, you sent me the 2 recordings. My exact feedback to myself was, Jesus Christ, I sound terrible. What is this? And
Exactly.
as we've gotten through it, I keep listening to myself. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little better. I'm getting more comfortable with this. And you are right. There is something to be said if you want to be a actor, singer, Broadway, do this, whatever you want to do. If you're uncomfortable, yeah. If you're uncomfortable hearing what you sound like on a recording, I hate to say it, it's not going to be fun for you.
No, absolutely not. I feel like there's also like I had to come to terms with that myself, and a big part of that was like this is I'll show you this. This is an in-ear monitor system I have, and there's a box over here, and it's connected to the system, right? And when you get an in-ear piece, you can really hear exactly, because you're hearing exactly what's coming out of the speakers if you tune it right.
Right.
Obviously, like you have to fix it with the board and stuff, but that was a big turning point for me getting that thing, because not only did it explain to me what it meant to listen back and that I should listen back, it also taught me like exactly what what you hear in your head versus what you hear out there, and versus what other people hear. Because again, it comes down to being a singer. It's like you hear your voice differently technically than everybody else, because you're hearing it reverberate through your bones, as opposed to people just hearing it hit their ears. And that can also be said for acting too, because like and being on camera, because the camera and the microphone, they capture everything, and they don't lie, and they don't adjust like our eyes and ears do. So
correct.
It's a big separation, and that also ties into mental health, because like you even said, like listening back to yourself, you're like, fuck, like I sound terrible, and like once you're thrown in the pool and you almost drown once, you'll never drown again.
Yep.
Message of the day. But I think I think unless you want to add anything more you want to bring up about mental health.
Uh, I'll say maybe not necessarily so much in the realm of mental health, but like I would say just in overall just health in general. Prioritize your sleep. Prioritize your body's recovery.
Mm.
Don't be like Icarus and try to fly too close to the sun.
Story of my life.
Right. But so I want to hear the story of this song because you did say there's a story to it.
Behind Untouchable.
Yes.
So,
and I believe the world needs to know.
It ties into the story of Breathe You. Okay. So I wrote this song, Breathe You, and Magic Garden. No, not Magic Garden. I wrote Breathe You, Untouchable, and Find Your Own Way with Gary Miller, music producer who's worked with Elton John. Like he's just worked. I mean, like so many freaking people. The guy has like a huge track record.
Okay.
Really terrific. Like he's really just a music genius. We just didn't get along on a lot of levels, and I don't work with him anymore, unfortunately, because he really was like a genius. So when we wrote Breathe You, the night before we jumped into writing the song, I remember when I showed up for the first time, he's like, I have this hook, I breathe you in, I breathe you out, I lay awake at night because I can't sleep, you're all I think about. And we didn't really have anything to work off of it at the time. I mean, at the time, right before I went out to meet him for the first time, I went through a separation with someone that I really wanted to date, but they just weren't right here. And I realized like, I can't help this person. And it was really hard to separate myself from that. And I had to let that go. And I was still in that process and still definitely grieving over that and going through the stages of grief. But then one night, his own relationship blew up in his face and pretty much ended in front of me. And I'm only saying that because the next day, it just opened up this sense of vulnerability for the both of us to talk about what we were going through. And then to also put that into a song. And that made it so much more raw because like, I wouldn't here's the thing. If we weren't working together and I was just somebody that he knew, he wouldn't have been telling me. I mean, he's, at the time he was a 59-year-old man, you know what I mean? Like why would he want to tell me about that unless we were working on a song about a breakup? Right.
Right.
But that definitely tied into making such an amazing song. And like to this, and every day and to this day, I will still appreciate him for that. No matter what happened after, I still appreciate him for that.
Okay.
You know who you are. Gary. But then that tied into Untouchable because a little backstory. So I'm based in the Philly area. I'm not gonna disclose my location, and he's in Los Angeles. So I would fly there for like 5 days, sometimes up to 2 weeks at a time, right? And then I would fly back home, and I would take care of stuff at home and work on some other things and do a little writing here and there and work on ideas. And then I would fly back. And we did that from like the beginning of October of 2019 to like the beginning of January. So over the course of 4 months, I went there maybe 6 or 7 trips. And with that and I'm telling you this because the separation of going from working together and then me coming home and coming back is we had time to process our emotions about our own separate relationships. And when we came back together, we wrote Untouchable because we were both in a state of like, we're coming around the bend of like those feelings and like really learning how to let go of those people because it's different with every relationship. But we were kind of, again, coincidentally in the same stage of letting that go. And it made it even easier to write a song about not letting anything get in your way, no matter if it's a breakup, you get laid off from your job, something happens between friends or your family, no matter what happens, you still come around to realizing like, I can't let that get in the way of my dreams. If I did, I would be doing myself a disservice and halting my professional life, you know? And in a way, it's kind of like a coming of age story, you know? And like, the lyrics and the bridge is my favorite part, is, you got to be a believer to get out there on your own and a daydreamer. Don't look back. You might turn to stone, because there are people who dwell on their past and they're frozen and they can't break out of that. And that's the last thing, especially when you're a performer and an artist and you're constantly on social media, you're constantly putting out content, you're constantly showing that you're serious about this. You have to learn how to let it go.
Right.
And that's basically what the whole song is about, is learning how to let it go and focus on the big picture. Because that was a chapter in your life that you can close forever if you wanted to. Pack it up in your brain, compartmentalize it, and reflect on it when you need to realize that you may be running into the same issue. You need to learn a lesson. And that's it.
No, and you're right. Like you gotta move along. You gotta learn from what you've done and hopefully not repeat it again. And again, I will say a lot of good songs come from the breakups.
Absolutely. Like 99, like I wouldn't say 99, but 95% of songs, if you really read the lyrics and absorb the story, they're about love in some form or fashion. And it's something that'll never grow old, because that's kind of like what we seek in life, obviously, is love. Whether it's a relationship, family, friends, business success, it's all love, right?
Yep.
It's all love. And
so
mental health. So love yourself.
Yes, do that. Give yourself a big hug. One other question I have, just like as you like do the songwriting, the music, things like that, do you write, or I guess, do you have like a guitar riff or like a lyric or a hook in your head? You write it down and then you kind of keep writing it, or like keep like tinkering on the guitar? Like how does, like, walk me through that process, because I'm just curious. Okay, more so than anything. We're
gonna get just a tad musical. Let's hop over to my guitar real quick.
All right, Hobbles, you can do it.
So the biggest, like recently I had a guitar progression that goes like, kind of like, very similar chord progression between the two, orders of that progression. But then I kind of like thought, like
okay.
And I just kind of thought about that in my head. And sometimes I feel like when you get to a certain point of being a writer and a singer and a musician, you kind of just hear melodies in your head that work with progressions, and you kind of build off of that. But in order to even get to a progression, you have to build, like, I learned something from Gary, that the biggest thing about songwriting is, if you really want to write a hit song, start with the chorus, lyrics, and melody. Right?
That makes sense.
That's your main hook. That's what people are gonna remember. And if you can build verses off of that, it will work with the chorus, because you have to consider what you start with. And then part of my process is really building the instrumentation around what the voice is doing within the song.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because again, like, I'm a pop rock crossover guy. Like I write in pop and rock formats, but I have like a southern rock and a blues influence. So I let the sound of my voice and the words that I'm saying drive the soul, and then the instrumentation is purely just to support it. Because if you have, unless it's meant to be instrumental music like EDM or like Wire by Particle, which we talked about last week.
Yep.
If you just have an instrumental and it's meant to have lyrics behind it, if you're the solo artist with a voice, there's really nothing there. It's just the TV track, right?
Yeah.
But because that vocal means everything. So that's kind of what I split my process into. Is I split it into, this is the vocal and the story and the melody, and then this is the guitar, bass, drums, whatever the hell else to support it. Because, like, with Breathe You, all the guitar parts, they're simply to add like almost like a garnish to the melody. You know, I breathe you in,
Yeah.
you know,
Right. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
just like a call and response, like a compliment to what I'm saying,
Okay.
or what note I'm hitting, right? And that's my process, honestly. You know.
No, it makes sense. Like I said, that was my own just curiosity because like just you talked with the guy you used to work with, like how I had the hook and then you came up with the rest of it. So I didn't know if that's more or less how you always did it, or if it sometimes just organically happens. You'll just like pick up a guitar, you'll just start playing something, be like, "Ooh, I like how that sounds. What can I write with this?"
No, yeah, because sometimes it's like you'll get a piece of it and then you'll let it sit, and then one day it's gonna vomit out of you, like
Yes.
like there was a song I wrote recently, with that progression actually, um, that I was kind of contemplating wanting to walk back into one of my friends who kind of cut me off's life, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I realized, you know what, like it's better off that I don't, and it's better
Mhm.
off that I put it into a song because it's something you feel strongly about. You know, like that's the biggest thing too, is like you can't be a songwriter unless you really feel strongly about things.
Yeah.
Because like you can tell when it's not genuine. And those are people that don't feel as strongly as others. Because empathy is a spectrum, much like autism or being a sociopath. Empathy is a spectrum. And there's people who feel different levels. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm all the way on the right. I'm not gonna lie to you. All the way to where like I feel like more than most, kind of, if you want to consider that. And then there are people who don't really feel too much,
Mhm.
or they just let almost too many things roll off their back. Um,
Right.
and that's like a big piece of being a songwriter, and that also ties into mental health because your mentality and your stories, they you, your audience and your listeners get to know who you are through your material if it's original, you know.
Right. Right.
Because like for example, Adele doesn't write any of her songs, and from what these aren't my words, but other big songwriters have said, she's hard to work with, apparently. Again, not my experience, I don't know her personally,
Right.
but that also makes it hard for me to get to know who she is because she doesn't write any of her songs, right? It's kind of just like, what do you but the thing is, like, that's kind of like half the singers out there, they can't write for shit, but they can sing convincingly like they've lived that story.
Yeah.
And that's enough. That's more being a theatrical singer than a singer-songwriter,
Okay.
you know?
That makes no, and that makes complete sense. I'm also still trying to process that you put the word sociopath and spectrum together, but I'll work on that on my own time.
Oh, it is a spectrum. Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
I'm well aware.
But
I've watched enough of those true crime documentaries to figure it out.
oh yeah, no, there are people who don't feel and for all those that do, love yourself because you
Yes,
know that if you're going through something horrible, you deserve better. Get the help you need because if you don't,
please.
your life is going to go in a direction and you're going to regret it. A direction that you don't like and you're going to regret it.
Hey, BetterHelp, sponsor us.
Better help, please. Better help. And Omission Brewing Company.
And Liquid Death.
I love your lager. It's terrific. But I think that is going to do it for today's episode of the Just Because podcast, episode 4, with your host.
Holy crap! How did we make it this far?
I know. 5 is next, dude. That's like a whole hand of fingers.
I know, and we really got to get working on this Patreon thing.
That is true.
I tinkered with it a little bit today, so when you got time, take a look at it. I think we're basically there.
Yeah.
It might
Episode
just
5,
be
there will be a Patreon setup, and we will plug it. We will do that.
all right, fine.
We will. But your hosts, Marodelo and
Dan the Man.
we
Remember,
love
kids,
having you here. Please tune in for more episodes because there's more background noise for you to listen to because we're just a couple of boneheads who like the bullshit. You know?
Indeed. And remember, love yourself, get the help you need. prioritize you in a lot of cases.
Exactly. Your mental health is more important than any friendship relationship that you have. Very important.
Yep.
Stay safe, especially in your brain.
Yep.